The last sound Elias Trent heard before the shuttle door sealed was the echo of Earth's anthem, played over a broken transmission. It wasn't even a song anymore, just static and memory stitched together by distant hope. He'd volunteered for what the military called the Bond Accord, an alliance program designed to rebuild peace and population across devastated colony worlds. But deep down, everyone knew what it really was, a gamble to save both species from extinction. The aliens called it sacred, humans called it desperate, and Elias called it his last chance to matter. The shuttle drifted through blue mist as it descended onto the alien world, Orin 9. Through the viewport, he could see its cracked surface glittering with strange life. Rivers of luminous green light pulsed across the planet like veins through skin, as if the world itself was alive and breathing. He tightened his grip on his service tags, thumb brushing over the initials of a name long faded by time, RM to his sister, lost in the siege of Mars. He whispered to the air, "Guess I'm still fighting for you, Ray." The pilot's voice came through his earpiece, distorted and calm. "Commander Trent, atmospheric lock achieved. You'll be met at landing site 12 by your assigned liaison." The word liaison made Elias exhale hard through his nose. He didn't like euphemisms. He'd been told the Bond Accord was about unity, about sharing culture and survival, but every soldier who came before him returned changed, or didn't return at all. The shuttle landed with a gentle hiss. The door opened to a corridor of mist and light. The air shimmered faintly, filled with a scent he couldn't name, something like rain on metal, clean yet alien. He stepped out slowly, pulse steady, boots sinking slightly into a soft bioluminescent surface that glowed underfoot. The landing field stretched toward a city that rose like coral towers, twisting skyward with impossible grace. Two figures waited at the end of the ramp. For a second, Elias thought his eyes were playing tricks. They were identical, tall, luminous, and terrifyingly beautiful. Skin like pale silver reflecting faint violet hues, eyes like molten gold, hair that rippled like strands of starlight. They wore flowing armor that looked grown rather than forged, alive and shifting subtly with every breath. And both smiled when they saw him. It wasn't a human smile, it was too still, too perfect. The first spoke. Her voice vibrated with a resonance that made the air tremble. "Commander Elias Trent of Earth Command, you have answered the accord. We are honored." The second tilted her head, studying him as if measuring something invisible. Then she spoke with the same tone but softer. "You were promised one bondmate, yet we stand before you both. I am Serin. She is Lyra. Together, we are the daughters of the Queen." Elias froze, unsure whether to salute, bow, or simply breathe. "Wait, both? I was told." He glanced down at the data pad on his wrist. The Bond Accord briefing was clear. One liaison partner for genetic compatibility trial. No mention of twins. No mention of royalty. "There's been a mistake," he said quietly. Lyra stepped closer, the air shimmering faintly around her. "There are no mistakes in the Queen's design." Her golden eyes studied him, and for a flicker of a moment, Elias felt something. Like a soft hum in the back of his skull, a whisper not his own. He stepped back instinctively, hand brushing the sidearm holster at his waist. "What was that?" he asked sharply. Serin smiled faintly. "A greeting. We share emotions through resonance. You will grow used to it." "I doubt that," Elias muttered, scanning their features again. Same faces, same posture, yet everything about them felt different. Serin's tone was steady, diplomatic, like a soldier. Lyra's presence was warmer, gentler, but her gaze lingered longer than comfort allowed. He couldn't tell if she was reading him or feeling him. They motioned him toward a hovering transport platform that glided silently across the glowing plains. The city ahead pulsed with energy, vast and silent. No engines, no lights, yet every structure seemed alive, breathing softly. As they passed through translucent gates, Elias saw thousands of beings in the distance. Tall silhouettes with luminous veins, moving in harmony, no voices, no sounds. A hive moving as one. Serin finally spoke again. "The Queen welcomes you, human. You are to begin the accord at dawn." The ceremony will bind our species as one. Bind? Elias repeated, his tone dry. That word's doing a lot of heavy lifting. Lyra's lips curved slightly. You fear us. I fear what I don't understand, he replied evenly. And right now, that's everything. The twins exchanged a glance. Silent communication that lasted a heartbeat too long. Then Serin said, You will understand soon enough. The transport stopped before an enormous arch grown from crystal and living root. Beyond it, a chamber opened into a cathedral of light. Massive pillars pulsed with slow heartbeats of color. Elias felt tiny beneath the alien architecture. But what unsettled him most wasn't the scale. It was the silence. Every sound from his body, every breath and footstep, echoed like a foreign intrusion. A voice echoed from above. Feminine, ancient, commanding, human. Elias looked up. From the glowing platform above descended a figure taller and grander than the rest. Her form draped in radiant threads of gold, her eyes burning like miniature suns. The queen. Her presence made the air vibrate. The twins lowered their heads, perfectly synchronized. Elias stood still, fighting the instinct to kneel. The queen regarded him for a long moment before speaking again. You are brave to stand when others kneel, she said. Bravery and defiance are what drew our attention to your kind. The accord exists because you resist extinction. Elias swallowed hard. I didn't come here for ceremony, Your Majesty. I came because the mission said our worlds need each other. I'm here to help. The queen's gaze softened slightly, or at least seemed to. Help? You misunderstand. You are not here to help. You are here to become. The words echoed through him like thunder. He opened his mouth to respond, but his throat felt locked. Lyra placed a hand on his arm gently, and suddenly warmth spread through his skin, tinged with something electric. For a heartbeat he saw flashes, images that weren't his own. A white ocean beneath twin moons, a cradle made of crystal, two infants, identical, lying side by side, their mother whispering, You are one soul divided. Then it was gone. He pulled away, breath ragged. What the hell was that? Serin's eyes flickered with faint sorrow. A memory. We share it when we touch. I didn't consent to that. Lyra's voice came soft. Nor did we ask for what we are. Silence hung between them, deep and cold. The queen turned, her radiance dimming slightly. You will rest in the guest chamber. Tomorrow begins the binding. Your genome will be integrated with the daughter chosen. Our future will be sealed. She paused, her voice dipping lower. But only one daughter will survive the process. Elias blinked. Excuse me? What did you just? The queen raised her hand. The accord demands balance. Only one life may hold the union. That is our law. Rest well, human. Dawn brings choice. Before he could protest, the chamber lights dimmed. The twins bowed deeply, though Serin's hands clenched at her sides. As the queen vanished into the mist, Lyra whispered almost inaudibly, Don't let her see your dreams tonight. Elias turned to her sharply. What's that supposed to mean? But Lyra only looked away. The faint hum returned in his mind, a whisper like a fading heartbeat. The accord is not what it seems. Later, in the solitude of his quarters, Elias sat on the edge of an alien bed grown from living material that pulsed faintly beneath him. The city outside glowed like a sea of fireflies, beautiful and terrifying. He stared at his reflection in the mirror. His own face looked foreign in this place. He whispered to himself, One will survive. The phrase looped through his mind like static. He turned as the door opened silently. It was Serin. She stepped inside, expression unreadable. You shouldn't trust her, she said quietly. Who? Lyra? The queen. Her eyes flicked toward the walls. They listen everywhere. Tomorrow, when dawn comes, pretend you accept. The bond isn't what you think. It's a cage. Then why are you helping me? Elias asked. Serin hesitated, then glanced at the faint glow beneath her collarbone. A mark like a burning thread. Because one of us doesn't want to be queen. And one of us already knows you were never meant to survive this accord. Before Elias could speak, the lights around them flickered, and a deep, resonant tone filled the air. A sound like the heartbeat of a god. Serin's eyes widened. She knows. The wall behind her shimmered, forming a living iris of light. Lyra stepped through, eyes glowing, her voice echoing inside his mind. Don't listen to her, Elias. The choice is already made. The room went dark. Only the pulse of the alien walls remained, beating in time with his heart. And for the first time since he left Earth, Elias Trent realized he wasn't here to save anyone. He was the offering. When Elias woke, the first thing he noticed wasn't the light, but the silence. The alien walls no longer pulsed softly as they had the night before. Instead, they stood cold and still, as if the entire city were holding its breath. He sat up slowly, his muscles stiff from restless sleep. Flashes of the previous night flickered through his mind. Serin's warning, Lyra's voice inside his thoughts, the Queen's haunting promise. It all felt unreal until he noticed the faint glow still pulsing beneath the veins of his wrist. A mark that hadn't been there yesterday. He stood and examined it under the pale light. It wasn't a tattoo, nor a wound. It shimmered faintly like circuitry beneath the skin. "What the hell did they do to me?" he whispered. The answer came not from the room but inside his head. Integration begins at first contact. He spun around, hand reaching for his sidearm. But Lyra was simply standing in the doorway, her eyes soft, her hands raised in calm. "You're safe," she said aloud, though her words also carried in his mind, gentle and melodic. "That mark means your genome has accepted the resonance field. You're connected now." "Connected?" he echoed, voice hard. "You mean you can read my thoughts?" She smiled faintly, stepping closer. "Not all. Just the ones you shout." Elias scowled. "Then stay out of my head." "I could say the same," she murmured, and for a moment her expression broke. Something fragile and human flickered there. "Do you think this is easy for us, Commander? We feel everything. Every heartbeat. Every breath that isn't our own. The Queen calls it empathy. I call it imprisonment." Before he could respond, Serin appeared behind her, posture crisp, expression cold. "You're not supposed to be here," she said sharply. "He hasn't completed his neural acclimation." Lyra didn't move. "The Queen will not wait. He deserves to understand." Serin's gaze cut to Elias. "Understand what?" "That he's not here to choose," Lyra said, stepping aside so both sisters faced him. "The Queen will decide which of us bonds with you. It's never been about compatibility. It's about succession." Elias frowned. "Succession? You mean this is about the throne?" Serin's jaw tightened. "Our mother's lifespan is nearing its end. The hive mind weakens. The bond accord was her solution, to merge human individuality with our collective consciousness. One of us must complete the union or the hive dies. But if the wrong daughter bonds," Lyra interrupted softly, "the hive survives, but freedom dies with it." The air thickened between them, and Elias could feel it, like static humming just beneath his skin, the psychic tension bleeding from both sisters. Their emotions clashed inside him, waves of fear and longing not his own. He staggered slightly. "Stop! Stop that!" he gasped, pressing his palms to his temples. Serin blinked and withdrew her energy at once, the pressure easing. Lyra looked away. "Sorry. It's hard to control when we're near each other." Elias looked between them. "So which one of you actually wants this bond? Or are you both just following orders?" Serin answered first, tone clipped. "It's my duty. The Queen has chosen me since birth. I will continue her reign and ensure our people's survival. There's honor in that." Lyra shook her head slowly. "Honor in obedience, perhaps, but not in losing what makes us alive." The sisters stared at each other, and Elias realized something unspoken passed between them, something painful. He looked down at the glowing mark on his wrist again and muttered, "You know, back home we used to have this thing called consent. Doesn't seem like anyone's heard of it here." Serin's expression hardened. You think you have a choice? Your world signed the accord. Every soldier who steps off a shuttle knows the price. Yeah, Elias said quietly. But none of us were told the fine print included dying for your family drama. Lyra's voice softened. Maybe you don't have to. Serin shot her a sharp look. Enough. The queen awaits. They led him through the city again, through corridors that pulsed faintly with organic light. The streets were lined with beings like them, slender figures that bowed as the twins passed. The hive moved in eerie silence, their eyes glowing faintly gold, each one connected through invisible threads of thought. Elias felt a faint pull in his chest, as if the whole city was breathing through him. They entered a vast dome at the heart of the palace. It was circular, the walls transparent, showing the expanse of the alien sky, two suns bleeding red and white across the horizon. In the center stood a raised platform of living crystal that shimmered when touched by the sisters' presence. The queen's voice filled the chamber before her image appeared. My daughters! It echoed, deep and resonant. And our guest. Elias straightened instinctively. Your Majesty. Her golden projection rippled before him, larger than life, each word reverberating through his bones. The human adaptation is proceeding well. His mind resists, but resistance is strength. Our kind must learn from it. Lyra spoke carefully, eyes on the ground. Mother, he deserves time to understand what will happen. Time is a human indulgence, the queen replied coldly. We are unity. He will join that unity, or his world will suffer the silence of broken promise. Elias clenched his fists. Is that a threat? The queen smiled, though the expression felt carved, unnatural. A reminder. You came seeking alliance. You will find it body, mind, and soul. The image flickered and vanished, leaving a chilling quiet behind. Serin turned to him. We'll begin preparations tonight. I didn't agree to any ceremony, he said firmly. You agreed when you stepped on this world, she said, voice tight. And when the mark appeared, it sealed the accord. Elias stepped closer, eyes locked on hers. Then maybe you should know something about humans before you try to seal anything. We don't follow orders we don't understand. For a heartbeat, Serin looked almost impressed. Then her voice softened. You think your defiance makes you free. It only makes you visible. Lyra took a hesitant step toward him. Please, don't fight her. The queen will sense it. Just act compliant until I can. Until you can what? Elias demanded. Lyra hesitated, her gold eyes flickering with fear. Until I can show you what the bond really is. Before Elias could respond, the floor beneath them rippled. The living platform pulsed with light, forming images around them, thousands of neural threads weaving through a massive structure that resembled both a brain and a city. Serin touched the air, activating the projection. This is the Hive core. Every mind in the Empire connects here. The bond accord will merge your consciousness directly into this network. Elias stared, realizing the truth hit harder than he expected. So this isn't about mating. It's about uploading. Lyra nodded faintly. Merging. Your neural patterns, your memories, they'll feed the core. This is what Mother wants. She believes humanity's fragmented individuality will strengthen the Hive's logic. Elias took a step back. You're turning people into code. Serin looked away. Into continuity. Lyra met his eyes. Into ghosts. Silence fell again. Somewhere deep in the city, a low hum began to rise. A heartbeat of millions in unison. Elias could feel it vibrating in his chest. He looked between them. Two sisters divided by duty and conscience, both bound to a fate they didn't choose. He said quietly, Then maybe it's time someone breaks your hive. Serin's eyes flashed with alarm. Be careful what you speak aloud here. Words are thoughts, and thoughts echo. Lyra stepped closer and touched his wrist lightly. Tonight, when the moons align, meet me in the lower chambers beneath the hive core. I'll show you what the queen fears most. Her touch burned, and for a moment, Elias saw something in her gaze. A fragment of another memory, another life, a field of fire. Human soldiers burning under twin suns. A whisper through smoke. We were never meant to be separate. Then the vision vanished. The sisters turned, their figures framed by alien light as the Hive's song grew louder around them. Elias stood alone in the chamber, the mark on his wrist pulsing like a second heartbeat. The Queen's voice echoed faintly through the walls, though she was nowhere to be seen. Choice is an illusion, human. By dawn, one of my daughters will become you. Elias looked out at the horizon, where two suns bled into each other like merging souls. He whispered under his breath, "Over my dead body," and somewhere beneath the palace, the Hive stirred, as if it had just heard him. The days blurred into something unreal, suspended between silence and tension. The alien sky was violet at dawn, streaked with veins of electric blue that rippled like thought patterns through the atmosphere. Elias stood outside the habitation dome, his breath fogging in the cold air. The two moons hung low and pale, one fractured into shards that glittered faintly like broken glass. Behind him, the quiet hum of the energy field was the only reminder that he wasn't dreaming. Inside, Serin and Lyra were waiting. The twins didn't sleep the way humans did. They went into something they called sync rest, a low-energy state where their minds partially merged. He'd watched once, unable to look away as their faces softened, breaths aligned, and faint light rippled beneath their skin like bioluminescent circuits. It was beautiful and unsettling. That night, they awoke before him. Serin was sitting at the edge of the shared quarters, her gaze distant, fingers tracing the glowing sigils carved into her arm. Lyra sat near the viewport, motionless, eyes open but not focused. Elias had learned not to interrupt their morning silence. It was like they were remembering where their minds ended and began. When he spoke, it was careful. Commander Run said, "We'll begin the neural alignment tests today." Lyra's head turned slightly. "You mean the bonding simulations?" she corrected, voice as soft as mist. "The Queen prefers the term alignment. But make no mistake, Elias Trent, this is not a test of unity. It's a test of obedience." Elias frowned. "Obedience to what?" Serin's eyes flicked toward him. "To the accord," she said simply, as though that explained everything. The air between them was always strange, thick with tension but charged with something else too. He'd begun noticing it days ago, the small moments when his thoughts seemed to echo before he spoke, when he dreamed something only to find Lyra describing it hours later. At first, he thought it was coincidence. Then it became undeniable. It began with a dream, a cold sea of silver, stars drowning in waves, and two figures reaching toward him through the water. He'd felt their touch before waking, heart hammering. When he saw Serin at breakfast, she was staring at him like she already knew. "You dreamed of us," she'd said quietly, and there had been no question in her tone. Now, sitting across from her again, he remembered the chill that came with those words. "What's happening to me?" Lyra finally stood, her movements fluid, unervingly graceful. "The neural lattice in your mind is responding to ours," she said. "The accord links biology and technology, emotion and instinct, but it's never been tested on a human." Serin added, "The connection was supposed to be controlled, but your kind feels too much." He gave a short laugh that wasn't really a laugh. "That's your way of saying I'm breaking your experiment." Lyra stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "No," she said softly. "You're changing it." That night he couldn't sleep. The whispers came again. Not from the room, but from inside his mind. Two voices, layered and indistinct, murmuring words he couldn't translate. He turned, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe through the dizzy pulse behind his eyes. Then, images. Serin, standing under a rain of starlight. Lyra, crying out in silence as mechanical tendrils reached for her. His chest clenched. When his eyes flew open, both twins were standing over him. "You heard us," Serin whispered. He struggled for words. "You were in my head." Lyra's expression was fragile, almost frightened. "We didn't mean to. The link grows stronger when you sleep. It seeks alignment." Elias pushed himself up, the air sharp with ozone. "Alignment or control?" They exchanged a glance. The silence said everything. Over the next days, the bond deepened. During the training sessions, the technicians recorded patterns neither human nor alien could interpret, bursts of neural resonance that synchronized in impossible ways. When Elias moved, Serin flinched. When Lyra spoke, he felt the vibration in his skull before hearing the words. By the end of the week, he didn't need to speak aloud to be understood. But it wasn't just thoughts. It was memories. He began recalling fragments of a life that wasn't his. Metal corridors, the sound of glass breaking, a voice screaming Lyra before the explosion. He'd wake drenched in sweat, his heart aching with a grief he'd never lived. When he confronted them, Serin only shook her head. Some things are better left unfelt, she said. Yet Lyra's eyes told a different story, haunted, apologetic. You saw it because the bond chose you, she said. And now it cannot be undone. The Queen's voice came through the comm line soon after, melodic and cruel. Progress exceeds projections. Continue the integration, my daughters. The human is proving receptive. Receptive. Elias felt the word burn. He was more than data to her. He had a name, a heartbeat, a soul. And yet to them he was just another piece of the puzzle. He began to notice the walls too, the quiet drones that hovered, watching, recording. Every interaction was observed, analyzed, measured for compatibility. The colony wasn't a home. It was a cage made of glass and protocol. One evening, after the lights dimmed to their simulated dusk, Serin approached him in silence. She pressed a hand to his temple, her touch cool and electric. You have to know the truth, she whispered. The bond accord isn't about peace. It's about control. The Queen fears rebellion among her hybrids, our kind. By linking us to humans, she hopes to anchor us, to tame what she calls our instability. But once the link completes, it won't just bind minds. It will overwrite them. Elias pulled back, stunned. You're saying she means to take control of me? Of all of us, Serin said. Once the merge stabilizes, there will be no you, no us. Only the accord. Lyra stepped from the shadows, her face half lit by the violet glow of the energy walls. Don't listen, she said softly, her tone heavy with something almost pleading. Serin doubts what she cannot change. The accord brings unity. It will end the suffering of both species. Serin rounded on her. You believe that lie because she made you believe it. The tension between them vibrated like a charged field. Elias could feel it humming through the bond, the twin pulses of love and hate, connection and division. It hurt to stand between them, to feel their emotions bleeding into his. He looked from one to the other. Then which one of you is telling the truth? Neither answered. That night, when he finally slept, he dreamed of the Queen. She stood in a void of black water, her eyes bright with gold light. The human resists, she said, her voice echoing through his skull. But resistance is only the seed of surrender. He woke with a gasp, the sound of his own scream swallowed by the quiet hum of the dome. His pulse thundered. He was shaking when he realized. Lyra was beside him, watching. You saw her, she murmured. Didn't you? He didn't answer, couldn't, because in the back of his mind, he could still hear the Queen's voice whispering a single word, soon. And from the shadows, Serin's whisper followed like a ghost. If you don't break the bond, Elias, she'll use you to break me. The night deepened around them, thick with unspoken fear. For the first time since landing on the alien world, Elias Trent didn't know if the voice in his mind was his own, or if it already belonged to someone else. The storm began long after midnight. It wasn't rain, not really. On this planet, storms were made of light. Silent waves of plasma rolled across the horizon, brushing the air with electric whispers. The walls of Elias's quarters trembled faintly as each pulse hit the dome. He was half asleep when the first signal reached him. Not through the comms, through the bond. Elias, her voice slid softly into his thoughts like a thread of silver. He jolted upright, scanning the darkened room. Lyra? No answer. Then, in the far corner, a shimmer. a flicker of refracted light, and she appeared, stepping out of the shadows as if she'd materialized from the storm itself. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dimness, violet and sorrowful. She wasn't supposed to be here. Each sector was monitored after curfew. "You'll be detected," he whispered. "I masked my signal," she said quickly. "But not for long." He noticed her trembling, the soft ripple of light beneath her skin stuttering like a dying pulse. Something was wrong. "Lyra," he said carefully. "What's happening?" She moved closer, her expression torn between fear and determination. "You deserve to know the truth before she decides for you." "The Queen." Lyra nodded, then reached for his hand. When their palms met, a jolt of warmth spread through his arm, and the room vanished. For a moment, Elias couldn't breathe. The dome, the storm, all dissolved into a vast, luminescent space filled with drifting symbols, strands of light weaving through the air like veins of living code. Lyra's projection shimmered beside him, more radiant than real, her voice echoing through the void. "This is the core of the Accord," she said. "Every bond, every experiment, every life, it all connects here." Elias stared around him. "Where are we?" "Inside the network that links my kind. It's forbidden for me to bring you here, but time is running short." She lifted a hand, and the lights rearranged themselves into twin forms. Two silhouettes, identical and graceful, hovering before them. "Serin and I were created, not born. We carry fragments of her, the Queen's genome. Her consciousness, her memories, her control." Elias's stomach tightened. "You're her daughters." "More than that," Lyra whispered. "We are her continuation. The Queen's genome is failing. Her body is aging faster than her essence can regenerate. Without renewal, her line ends. But your species, your DNA, is the only compatible strand left. Can stabilize her code. The Accord wasn't made to unite us, Elias. It was made to save her." The realization hit like a cold blade. "You mean this whole thing, the program, the bonding, it's about breeding her legacy?" Lyra's face wavered with guilt. She believes merging human resilience with her genome will create a perfect successor. But the integration doesn't just mix blood, it merges minds. If you complete the bond, you won't just father her lineage. You'll become part of it. He stepped back, his heart pounding. "Part of it? You mean?" "She wants you to be her vessel," Lyra said softly. "Her next host. Her new king." The word hung between them, heavy as gravity. King. It didn't sound like power, it sounded like captivity. Elias turned away, trying to steady his breath. "And you? What about you and Serin?" Lyra hesitated. "We were her first attempts. Echoes of her spirit split in two bodies. That's why we're linked, why our minds overlap. But something went wrong. I began to feel different. I began to feel human." Her eyes lifted to his, trembling with emotion that wasn't entirely hers. She called it contamination. I called it love. The silence that followed burned hotter than the plasma storm outside. He took a slow step toward her. "That's why you reached out to me." "I had to," she said. "Because when the final phase begins, you won't have a choice. The Queen will trigger the neural command remotely. Serin doesn't know yet. She still believes she can control what's coming." Elias shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping him. "So I was never chosen for peace. I was chosen to save her bloodline." Lyra's hand trembled as she reached for him again, her voice breaking. "No, Elias. You were chosen because you changed the signal. The moment you arrived, something shifted in the field. The Accord started producing frequencies the Queen couldn't predict. That's why she's accelerating the merge. She fears you." He blinked. "Me?" Lyra nodded. "Humans create chaos in the lattice. You don't think in patterns. You feel. That's something she can't replicate." The thought barely had time to settle before the light around them began to flicker. Lyra gasped, clutching her chest. "She's tracing the signal. She knows I opened a link." Elias grabbed her arm. "Then shut it down." "I can't without burning it out completely." Her voice cracked. If she finds us, she'll erase my core, my memories, my identity. I'll cease to exist. He didn't think, just acted. He pulled her close, grounding her trembling body against his. Then you're not going back. Lyra's eyes widened, and for the first time, he saw something unmistakably human in her expression. Fear, hope, love all tangled together. You don't understand, she whispered. If I sever the signal, I'll lose part of myself, the part that connects me to Serin. Then let me take it, he said. Transfer it to me. I can handle it. Her gaze searched his, disbelieving. No one can hold twin signals. It would destroy you. Maybe, but if I don't, the queen wins. Lightning flared across the link space, casting them in blinding gold. Lyra hesitated, then pressed her palm to his chest. I'll guide it, she whispered. But if you feel pain, don't fight it. Let it in. The moment their minds connected, Elias felt the universe collapse inward. Thousands of voices screamed through him. Memories, sensations, entire lifetimes bleeding into his consciousness. The queen's voice roared like thunder, furious, demanding submission. Beneath it, two softer tones, Lyra and Serin, twined like melodies fighting to stay distinct. He felt Lyra's sorrow, Serin's confusion, the queen's rage. He saw 1,000 faces that weren't his own. And then stillness. The light faded. The link space shattered. They were back in the room. Lyra staggered, her breathing shallow, her glow dimmed. You held it, she whispered, disbelief trembling in her tone. You're still here. Elias dropped to his knees, his skull pounding, but his voice was steady. She can't control me anymore. Lyra knelt beside him, tears shimmering along her cheeks. No, Elias, you don't understand. You didn't break the link, you absorbed it. You are the link now. He stared at her, realization dawning slowly, horribly. What are you saying? She swallowed hard. The queen can't command you anymore, but neither can I, or Serin. You carry all three of us inside you now. The storm outside reached its peak, thunderless lightning filling the air with silver fire. Elias looked toward the window, heart hammering. Then what happens when she finds out? Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. She already knows. And outside the dome, above the glowing sky, something vast began to move, an outline of a ship so large it blotted out both moons. The queen was coming. The dawn broke in crimson fire. Clouds boiled above the alien citadel, their underbellies glowing with the reflection of engines that filled the sky. Elias stood on the balcony of his containment chamber, the air thick with the low hum of 1,000 hovering drones. The queen had come. The world itself seemed to bend beneath her arrival. Lyra was gone, taken at dawn, her signal torn violently from his mind before he could even reach her door. The last thing she whispered into his thoughts was a single word, run. But there was nowhere left to run. Now, standing in the alien palace at the edge of the capital spire, Elias could see the full power of her empire. Living towers pulsing with bioluminescent veins, corridors crawling with translucent guards whose eyes gleamed like molten glass. And at the center of it all, the throne, grown from a massive chrysalis of crystal and flesh. The queen sat within it, shrouded in a corona of amber light, her body draped in filaments of living silk, her eyes, twin pools of molten gold, fixed on him the moment he entered. Human, she said, her voice echoing in his bones. You carry what is mine. Elias didn't answer. The guards pushed him forward until he knelt before her. The queen rose, unfolding her long, slender frame. Her movements were too smooth to be natural, every gesture perfectly measured. You have taken what was forbidden to take. My daughters have touched your mind, and now you bear their essence. Your daughters, Elias said bitterly, are not extensions of you. They're alive. They're mine, she interrupted, her tone sharp enough to cut air. And soon so will you be. The room darkened as her hands spread. The air filled with motes of golden dust, and from the ceiling descended two figures, Serin and Lyra. both suspended in beams of amber light. Lyra's eyes fluttered weakly open, her skin pale, her glow dimmed to near extinction. Serin, however, stood tall, fierce, defiant. "Mother," Serin said, her voice shaking the floor with hidden power. "You promised peace. You promised this union would save both our kinds." The queen regarded her coolly. "And it shall. But peace is not given freely. It is built from submission." Serin's gaze flicked toward Elias, and he saw the fury there. "You mean enslavement. You mean control." The queen stepped closer to Elias, her presence like gravity made flesh. "Do you know what you carry inside you, human? That spark your people call soul? It is disorder, unpredictable, untamed. I will harness it, purify it, and weave it into the hive. You will not die. You will ascend." "By overriding me," Elias said through clenched teeth. She smiled. "By perfecting you." Lyra's voice was a faint whisper. "Elias, don't let her." The queen silenced her with a wave. "The ceremony begins now." The floor beneath Elias began to split apart, revealing a circle of light that pulsed with rhythm, like a heartbeat. Tendrils of luminous energy slithered up around him, wrapping his wrists and ankles, locking him in place. Above him, a lattice of golden symbols ignited in the air. Serin stepped forward, her expression torn between obedience and terror. "Mother, you said he would choose." "He already has," the queen hissed. "His bond is complete. His will belongs to me." Elias felt it then, a pulling inside his head, like invisible fingers digging into his thoughts. The bond screamed, and voices began to pour through him, thousands of them. Hive whispers crashing into his consciousness. He tried to fight, but the harder he resisted, the deeper they dug. Serin looked at him, horror dawning in her eyes. "She's merging him now." Lyra's weak voice cracked through the link. "Stop her. Please." "She'll erase him." And then something snapped inside Serin. She turned on her mother. "Enough." The queen's head tilted slowly. "You dare." Serin raised her hand, and the air shuddered. The hive's song faltered. "You can control my body, but not my heart." With a scream, she unleashed a surge of psychic force that shattered the golden lattice. The chamber convulsed as streams of energy lashed through the air. The queen countered instantly, her aura blazing like a dying sun. The clash of their minds filled the room with shockwaves that sent drones and guards tumbling into molten walls. Elias, still bound, watched the battle through flashes of blinding light. Serin's will was raw, desperate. The queen's was ancient and precise. Sparks of memory, alien wars, lost galaxies, 1,000 deaths, flared across Elias's vision as their psychic war poured through the bond. And then the impossible happened. The backlash hit him. The twin forces of the queen and Serin collided in his mind, igniting something vast and dormant, something that had been sleeping inside him since the link transfer. A third frequency, older than the hive, older than either of them. It felt like waking up and dying at the same time. His body arched against the restraints as golden light erupted from his veins, flooding the chamber with blinding brilliance. Both the queen and Serin froze, turning toward him as his voice, no longer entirely his own, filled the room. "Enough!" The light coalesced around him, forming a shape, neither human nor alien, but something in between. He could see their thoughts, their fears, their futures, all interwoven in the same shimmering web. He wasn't just linked to them anymore. He was becoming the bridge between them. The queen staggered back, eyes wide for the first time. Impossible? The ancient resonance. It was lost eons ago. Elias looked at her, his voice low and thunderous. "You wanted a king. Now you have one." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Serin fell to her knees, her energy flickering wildly. The queen tried to speak, but her power faltered. Elias could feel her mind pressing against his, searching for dominance and failing. The old hive control matrix couldn't bind what he'd become. The chamber trembled as the storm outside intensified. The walls cracked, the air filled with golden dust. The queen let out a piercing cry, half fury, half disbelief. "You are not my creation." Elias's voice echoed like thunder. "No, I'm humanity's answer." And then everything exploded. The chamber imploded into white light, consuming the throne, the guards, and the sky itself. When the brilliance faded, silence followed, deep and vast. Elias lay in the center of the ruined hall, the air thick with the smell of ozone and ash. The queen was gone. Serin crawled toward him, shaking, her body flickering in and out of phase. "Elias," she whispered, voice trembling. What did you do?" He looked at his hands, glowing faintly with the same energy that had destroyed the Hive's core. "I didn't do it alone," he murmured. "Something inside me woke up." Serin's eyes widened. "You mean the Hive inside you?" He met her gaze. "No, older than that. Something that remembers when humanity was just a spark in the dark." The wind outside howled like a warning. In the distance, through the shattered roof, Elias could see the Queen's massive vessel falling from orbit, burning as it broke through the atmosphere. Serin clutched his arm. "She'll come back. She always does. You don't know her the way we do." Elias's glow dimmed, his human eyes flickering through the alien light. "Then it's time someone taught her what it means to lose." But even as he said it, a shadow stirred in the corner of his mind. A whisper that didn't belong to the Queen or her daughters. A deeper voice, ancient and calm. "Welcome back, traveler." Elias froze. "Who said that?" Serin frowned. "What?" He didn't answer, because the voice wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from within, the thing that had awakened inside the bond. And for the first time, Elias realized that maybe the Queen wasn't the only one playing God. The world around Elias was still burning when the awakening began. The palace had become a wound in the heart of the planet, crimson light spilling through the fractures in its living walls, the air trembling with a strange harmony that wasn't sound but memory. Serin crouched beside him amid the ruin, her pulse flickering weakly under her translucent skin. The last traces of the Queen's ship burned in the sky like falling suns. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Elias felt it before he saw it, the surge deep in his skull, like a second heartbeat pounding behind his eyes. The ground rippled beneath him as the neural link reignited without warning. He gasped, clutching his head, as threads of golden energy erupted from his veins, spreading through the shattered chamber like roots searching for light. "Elias, what's happening?" Serin cried, backing away as her own body began to glow in response. "I don't," he started, but the words dissolved into static. The light intensified, swallowing the ruins, and suddenly he wasn't there anymore. He was everywhere. A wave of visions crashed through him, millennia of memories not his own. He saw the birth of the Hive in some ancient nebula, saw the Queen's ancestors forging order out of chaos by fusing their minds into one. He saw the wars that followed, the extinction of entire species who refused to kneel, the silencing of every voice that dared to dream differently. And buried beneath it all, like a dark seed, he saw her fear. The Queen's true fear was not death. It was choice, individuality. Humans carried it like a virus, a fragment of freedom that infected everything it touched. That spark of self was what the Hive could never conquer, could never fully understand. And in him, that spark had fused with her own genetic code, creating something she could neither destroy nor control. He felt Serin's and Lyra's minds flare beside his, two lights in a storm of consciousness. Their thoughts twined with his, too fast for language, too raw for sound. He saw their shared childhood in a world of sterile beauty, the Queen's voice shaping their every breath. He felt Serin's quiet rebellion, the yearning to be her own person, and Lyra's ache to love without command. Their memories spilled into him like rivers into an ocean, unstoppable and pure. "Elias!" Serin's voice whispered through the void, trembling. "We can't stop it. The bond is consuming us all." He turned, or rather, the echo of his mind turned toward her. "Then let it. Maybe it's not meant to be stopped." But Lyra's voice cut through, sharp with pain. "You don't understand. The Hive link isn't stable anymore. If it collapses, it will take all of us with it, every mind connected to the accord. Millions will die. The Queen's voice surged from the depths of the link, cold and commanding. Then sever it, child. Save your kind. Her presence burned like a sun behind a veil, not fully gone, just diminished, retreating deeper into the network that pulsed through the planet itself. She was hiding in the lattice, rebuilding herself from the fragments of her empire. Elias reached into the shared field, feeling her consciousness threading between theirs like a shadow in the light. "You're not dead," he said. Her laughter echoed like breaking glass. "Did you think a mind like mine could perish so easily? You carry me now, human. My essence lives within your veins. You have not destroyed the Hive, you are the Hive." Serin gasped, her glow dimming. "No, he's not you. Not yet," the Queen purred. "But soon. His humanity will erode under the weight of our unity. His thoughts will blend, his memories fade, until there is no Elias Trent. Only us." The words struck deep, but Elias felt something inside him resist. A steady pulse that wasn't alien at all. He saw Earth again, its blue oceans and broken cities, the faces of those he'd lost. The stubborn will that refused to die even when the universe demanded it. Humanity's greatest flaw and its greatest gift. He looked toward the twins, their spectral forms flickering in the glow of the link space. "You said the bond can't be stopped," he said slowly. "But it can be changed." Lyra frowned. "Changed how?" "By rewriting the pattern," he said, realizing the truth even as he spoke it. "The Hive runs on harmony, sameness. But if I feed chaos into the field, individuality might spread through it like a chain reaction. It won't destroy your kind. It'll free them." Serin's eyes widened. "You mean every mind unbound?" He nodded. "Every single one. No more control. No more collective. Just choice." Lyra hesitated. "And you?" Elias smiled faintly, though he could feel the energy inside him tearing at the edges of his mind. "If I do this, I won't survive. The field will need a living anchor to stabilize during the change." Serin shook her head fiercely. "No, there has to be another way." "There isn't." His voice softened. "This is what your mother was afraid of. Not death. Freedom." Lyra's face crumpled, grief and love blending into one impossible emotion. "Elias, please, don't make us lose you too." He reached out, touching both their faces through the shifting light. "You won't lose me. You'll remember me every time you make your own choice. Every time you say I instead of we. That's what being human means." The Queen's scream tore through the link space, a sound of pure hatred and fear. "You cannot rewrite creation." Elias closed his eyes. "Watch me." He opened himself to the bond. The light around him intensified, splitting into millions of radiant shards. The Hive song twisted, breaking from harmony into a storm of conflicting melodies. He felt the Queen's grip claw at him, trying to pull him back into submission, but he poured his entire being into the signal. Serin and Lyra fell to their knees, their minds merging with his in one final, searing burst of energy. The bond erupted outward, shattering the old lattice of control. Across the empire, the Hive faltered, workers froze, commanders screamed as their thoughts became their own for the first time in history. In the center of it all, Elias burned like a star. Through the blaze, Serin's voice reached him. "Elias, you're fading. Stop." He smiled. "No, Serin. I'm awakening." The light consumed him entirely, rising until even the stars seemed to bow beneath it. And then silence. When the glow finally receded, the palace lay in ruins. The great Hive network had gone dark. Serin and Lyra stood among the wreckage, their bodies trembling but alive. The hum of the collective was gone. For the first time, the world felt quiet. Serin looked to the sky, tears streaking down her luminous face. He did it. Lyra pressed a hand to her chest, feeling the faint echo of his heartbeat that still lingered there. "No," she whispered. "He's not gone. He's everywhere now. In every free mind, in every choice." Above them, The storm clouds parted, revealing a dawn unlike any they'd seen. Gold and silver interwoven, the sky alive with newborn color. The queen's voice no longer echoed in their thoughts. Only the whisper of something older, something human. Wake up. Keep choosing. Serin turned toward the horizon, where the first rays of sunlight touched the ruins. Then that's what we'll do, she said softly. We'll keep choosing. And as they walked into the light, a faint shimmer followed them. A trace of Elias's soul, drifting like starlight through the air. The awakening had come. The hive was broken, but something far greater had been born in its place. Something that even the queen had never foreseen. A species reborn not through domination, but through freedom. A galaxy changed forever by one human's impossible choice. The night split open like a wound. The palace of the queen burned behind them, its towers of bone and silver shrieking as molten veins burst through their spines. Serin dragged Elias through the living corridor, her hand trembling in his as the walls themselves breathed around them, the vines pulsing with faint light, wrapping and unwrapping like veins in the flesh of a dying god. Every step he took, he felt Lyra's agony through the link, sharp, searing flashes of her cries echoing in his skull like broken glass scraping across metal. He could see what she saw, the queen's towering form of radiant flame, her eyes burning with the light of a collapsing sun, and Lyra standing against her with trembling defiance. Elias stumbled, clutching his head. She's still fighting, he gasped. Serin stopped, her eyes wide with fear and something far more fragile. Guilt. She won't stop, she whispered. She thinks she can end the hive from within. The vines recoiled from her voice, shivering as if they could feel her despair. They were deep inside the palace's root system now, a maze of living tunnels that stretched for miles beneath the city. Each pulse from above sent a tremor through the walls, shaking dust and spores into the air. Bioluminescent orbs flickered like dying stars, and Elias could hear distant screams. Not human, not alien, but something caught between the two. He leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "You're hurt," he said, noticing the crimson glow leaking from a crack in Serin's shoulder, where the queen's energy had struck her during the fight. The glow pulsed in rhythm with Lyra's heartbeat. "You're linked to her more deeply than before." Serin smiled weakly. "Twins don't separate. We just drift apart slowly." Her voice trembled, and for a moment, Elias saw past the alien perfection, past the synthetic glow of her eyes and the fractal tattoos on her skin, to the person trapped inside. Serin wasn't born. She was engineered to serve, to love, to obey. But now she looked at him like a woman seeing something sacred for the first time. "She'll die if you go back," Elias said, his voice thick with desperation. "She'll die if I don't," Serin replied softly. "But if I stay, the queen will find you. The hive will take what's left of your mind." The corridor quivered, a low hum rolling through it like thunder. The vines ahead began to split, parting to reveal a narrow passageway that led into a vast cavern. Elias could see the faint glow of the surface far ahead, the horizon calling them home. But the psychic bond flared again, ripping through him like a pulse of electricity. "Elias," Lyra's voice, faint, distant, yet unmistakably hers. "Don't run. If she completes the merge, no one will ever be free. Not them. Not us." He froze. Her tone wasn't pleading. It was determined. She wasn't trying to survive anymore. She was trying to end it. "Serin," he said, gripping her arm. "She's going to destroy the queen. She's going to destroy herself." Serin's breath hitched. She turned toward the burning palace, eyes wet with glowing tears. "Then I have to go to her." Elias tightened his grip. "If you go back, you'll die too." "I know." For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. The world burned above, the air heavy with the scent of ozone and ash. Somewhere deep beneath their feet, the hive screamed, millions of voices crying out as the network faltered, collapsing in on itself. Serin reached up and cupped Elias's face. Her skin was warm, trembling. "You showed me what it means to be human," she whispered. You gave me something my kind was never meant to have choice. He shook his head, his chest tightening. Then choose to live. A tear, luminous and soft as starlight, rolled down her cheek. If I do, she dies alone. She leaned forward and kissed him. Not like a ritual, not like an order, but like a goodbye. The world fell away in that single touch. He felt her thoughts, her fears, her love. Every emotion she had suppressed for her entire existence poured into him in a single moment of raw connection. Then, before he could speak, she turned and ran back toward the burning light. "Serin!" he shouted. The corridor shuddered as if the vines themselves tried to stop her. She forced her way through, glowing brighter with every step until her form became nothing but light. And then silence. Elias stood frozen, his chest heaving. The link inside his head trembled, collapsing under the weight of loss. But then a pulse. Not from Serin. Not from Lyra. From him. Something had changed in the network. The human genome, his mind, had rewritten a piece of it during the merge. The hive was fragmenting because of him. Above, the sky cracked open with fire. The palace screamed as the queen's consciousness faltered, her power unraveling. Elias staggered forward through the cavern, the vines pulling him upward toward the surface. He emerged onto the plateau overlooking the burning capital, a horizon of red and gold, where alien ships fell like dying stars. He fell to his knees, gasping. The connection pulsed one last time, and through it, he heard Lyra's voice. Calm now, almost peaceful. She's gone, Elias. So am I. No, he whispered, shaking his head. No, I can still feel you. You can feel what's left of us. The hive. It's ending. We're free, Elias. Don't let that be for nothing. And then she was gone. The bond collapsed like a dying heartbeat, leaving only silence in its wake. Elias stared at the sky for a long time. The fire reflected in his eyes as dawn began to rise over the ruins of the alien city. The wind carried the faint echo of voices, the hive dissolving into dust, the twins' final song fading into the morning light. He didn't know how long he sat there. Hours, maybe days. His body ached, his mind raw. But beneath the grief, something else stirred. A spark, a memory of their last touch, their last words. He stood, looking out over the wasteland. The queen was dead. The hive was gone. But somewhere deep inside him, fragments of their consciousness remained. Not as control, not as command, but as whispers of memory. And for the first time since arriving on this world, he didn't feel alone. Behind him, the vines shifted, reshaping themselves into new patterns. Unfamiliar, organic, and yet strangely human. The planet was changing, adapting to something new. Elias took a deep breath. If you can hear me, he murmured to the wind, I'll finish what you started. He turned toward the horizon, where faint green shoots broke through the ash, the first signs of life. Each one pulsed faintly in time with his heartbeat. The hive was gone, but something else had begun. And far in the distance, where the palace once stood, two faint lights flickered. Twin stars burning in the shadow, refusing to fade. Elias smiled, whispering to the dawn, You kept your promise. Then he walked into the rising light, toward the unknown world ahead. The last human carrying the memory of two alien sisters who taught him what it meant to be free. The palace was collapsing in waves of sound and light, its spires bending like molten glass as the hive screamed through every living corridor. The air reeked of burning ozone and psychic pressure so thick it made the bones hum. Elias moved through the chaos like a storm given form, his boots crunching against fragments of the queen's living citadel. Beside him, Serin moved with silent fury, her silver hair stained with ash, her eyes lit with defiance. The queen had ruled through eternity, binding every life in the empire under her collective thought. But now that unity was unraveling. Humanity had brought something she could never control, choice. The throne chamber loomed before them like the heart of a dying star. Great vines of energy pulsed up the walls, feeding into the enormous psychic core that was the queen's throne. A living structure of crystal and flesh, veins glowing with the rhythm of a galaxy's worth of minds. The chamber trembled as Lyra's voice echoed within it, not spoken but projected through the psychic ether. Elias, come. He could feel her, far beyond the physical, her consciousness locked in battle with the queens. When he entered the throne room, his vision blurred with light. The queen stood tall, her form massive and shifting, radiant like liquid fire in motion. Her face was both beautiful and monstrous, the outline of perfection twisted by the unbearable weight of control. Around her floated 100 spectral echoes, souls trapped within the hive, flickering in agony as Lyra fought to free them. Lyra knelt before the queen's throne, her hands pressed against the psychic nexus. Her body was trembling, every nerve screaming from the overload. The energy around her rippled like waves in a dying sun. She was inside the queen's mind, and Elias could feel it. A psychic battle that transcended flesh, two wills locked in an infinite struggle over the meaning of existence. Serin reached out, gripping Elias's arm. She's losing, she whispered. The queen's too strong. She's feeding on the hive's remnants. Elias looked down at his hand, the faint marks of the bond still glowing on his skin. He could feel the remnants of the link still alive inside him, a faint echo of the neural merge from before. He stepped forward. Then she won't fight alone. The queen's voice shook the room. You would dare to defy your creator? The sound was like thunder, 1,000 voices overlapping. You are nothing but a spark in the void, a mutation born of weakness. Elias lifted his head, meeting her gaze with steady calm. Then let's see what weakness can do. He reached out with his mind and the bond ignited. It wasn't like before, no pain, no confusion, just clarity. His thoughts brushed against Serin's and Lyra's, and for an instant, they became one. He felt Serin's grief, Lyra's strength, and his own humanity binding them together. The queen staggered, the hive around her fracturing with a sound like shattering glass. Lyra rose slowly, her eyes now burning with white fire. You ruled them by taking their thoughts, she said, her voice both human and not. But he gave me mine. The queen screamed. The walls splintered, and tendrils of psychic energy lashed out, striking Lyra across the chest. She stumbled but didn't fall. Elias ran forward, grabbing her arm, grounding her in his presence. His human mind, the chaos, the emotion, the imperfection, poured into the link. And that imperfection became poison to the hive. The queen faltered. Stop! She roared, clutching her head as fragments of individuality began breaking through the psychic collective. Around them, millions of alien minds flickered to life, whispering their first free thoughts in eons. The hive was collapsing from within. Lyra's voice softened. It's working. She's unraveling. Serin cried out, collapsing to her knees as the psychic energy overloaded her senses. Elias held Lyra tighter. End it, he shouted, before she takes you with her. Lyra looked up at the queen, her creator, her mother, her captor. Tears of light streamed down her face. You made us to obey, she whispered, but you never taught us how to stop loving. She reached forward and pressed her hand to the queen's chest. The energy exploded outward, a blinding surge that devoured everything in its path. The sound was not a scream, but 1,000 voices being set free at once. A chorus of liberation and grief. Elias shielded his eyes as the room turned to white fire. The psychic backlash knocked him to the ground, his mind filled with fragments. Memories of alien stars, lost worlds, the queen's fear, Lyra's hope. When the light finally faded, the chamber was silent. The throne was gone. The hive's tendrils had turned to ash, and the queen's massive form lay crumbled, a husk of silver and shadow. Elias pushed himself up, his ears ringing. Serin, he called out. She groaned softly, rising beside him. Her glow was dim, her energy almost gone. But she was alive. Together, they turned toward the throne. Lyra lay there, motionless. Her body was burned with streaks of energy, her silver skin fading to pale gray. Elias fell beside her, lifting her into his arms. Her eyes fluttered open for just a moment. Elias, she whispered, her voice fragile as dust. He shook his head, tears spilling freely. No, no, don't you do this. You saved them. You saved all of them. Lyra smiled weakly. Then, it was worth it. Her hand touched his cheek one last time. Tell Serin, I wasn't afraid. And then she went still. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. The hive mind was gone. Its eternal song finally ended. In the distance, Elias could hear something new. The sound of rain. Real rain, falling through the broken dome of the palace. The world was healing itself. Serin knelt beside them, trembling. She did it, she said softly. The queen's gone. Elias looked at Lyra's face. Peaceful now, as though she were only sleeping. The storm outside painted her skin in streaks of gold. She was the bravest of us all, he whispered. Serin's eyes shimmered. She was everything the queen feared we could become. Elias laid Lyra down gently and rose. Then we'll make sure her story never ends. The palace cracked again, massive chunks falling into the abyss below. The last of the psychic energy faded from the air. Elias turned to Serin, holding out his hand. Come on, he said quietly. Let's go home. Together, they stepped through the shattered gates of the Hive Palace. Behind them, the throne, the symbol of the queen's eternal dominion, collapsed into dust. Ahead, dawn broke across the alien sky, and the first light of freedom touched the ruins. As they walked, Serin whispered, Do you think she can still hear us? Elias looked back once more, feeling the faintest echo of warmth deep in his mind. A flicker of Lyra's presence, gentle, watching. He smiled faintly. Yeah, he murmured. She's everywhere now. The wind carried the ashes of the queen into the rising light, and for the first time since humanity had landed on this world, the silence was not of oppression but of peace, the kind that comes after a storm finally breaks. The wasteland stretched endlessly beneath a bruised sky, a broken landscape of glassy rock and ash where the remains of the hive still glimmered faintly like dying embers. Elias and Serin stumbled through the wreckage, their clothes scorched and torn, their bodies carrying the invisible weight of what they had done. The queen was gone, her empire shattered into fragments of thought drifting through psychic silence. But the silence was not complete. Lyra's voice still whispered in the corners of Elias's mind. Faint, flickering, fragile, like a candle fighting to survive in a storm. They had made camp near the remains of a crashed transport pod. The twin suns hung low, painting the sky in bands of red and violet. Elias sat beside a weak fire, his hands trembling as he traced the faint glow on his wrist where the bond mark pulsed faintly. It had been dying ever since the queen fell. But sometimes, it flickered, like a heartbeat trying to return. Serin sat across from him, her knees drawn close, her gaze distant. The light beneath her skin had grown dimmer, and Elias could see the same exhaustion in her that he had seen in Lyra before she fell. She looked hollow, beautiful, but fading. She's still there, he said quietly. I can feel her. Serin's eyes lifted slowly to meet his. Fragments, maybe, echoes. No, Elias said, shaking his head. It's more than that. She's alive, Serin. I can feel her reaching out. Serin swallowed hard. If she's still in the psychic field, then she's trapped. Between consciousness and the void. You can't reach her, Elias. Humans aren't built for that kind of traversal. You'd burn your mind before you ever saw her. I don't care. His voice cracked on the edge of desperation. He stared into the flames, watching them twist into shapes that reminded him of her face. The way she smiled, the way her eyes softened when she called him by name. Lyra had been light in a world that knew only control. She had chosen freedom over eternity. And now she was alone, lost in the ruins of the hive. Serin stood slowly, crossing the fire to kneel beside him. Her hand brushed his cheek, gentle, trembling. If you go into the psychic realm, there's no guarantee you'll find her. You might lose yourself. And if your link collapses, it'll take what's left of her with it. Elias looked up at her. If I don't try, she dies for nothing. Serin's breath trembled. You still don't understand. If she dies, she hesitated, eyes filling with shimmering tears. If she dies, so do I. He froze. The words hit him harder than the Queen's psychic storms ever could. What do you mean? We're twins, Elias, she whispered. Not by blood, but by creation. Our neural matrices are intertwined. When one falls, the other unravels. I thought I could resist it, but I can feel her fading. Every time her consciousness dims, I lose a part of myself. Elias gripped her shoulders, panic in his eyes. Then tell me how to save you both. Serin looked away, her expression heavy with a pain too deep for words. There's a way, she said softly. But it's not meant for humans. You'd have to enter the psychic core, the same one that powered the Hive. It's buried under the ruins of the palace now, flooded with residual mind energy. If you enter it, your consciousness will leave your body. You'll have to navigate what's left of the Hive to find her. And if I do? You might bring her back, she said. Or you might die trying. Elias exhaled, the decision already made in his heart. He looked at the horizon, where the ruins still glowed faintly with psychic residue. Then I'll go. Serin's voice broke. Elias, please. He turned to her, his face illuminated by the firelight. You said she's still there. If there's even a chance, I have to take it. Serin stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Then I'll guide you in. But you have to promise me something. Anything. When you find her, if she tells you to let go, you must. Don't let her pull you into the void with her. Elias swallowed. I promise. But deep down, he wasn't sure he could keep it. They set out before dawn. The air was heavy with static, and the ground trembled as the psychic field beneath the ruins pulsed erratically. They reached the crater where the throne chamber had collapsed. A vast pit of molten glass and glowing roots that still hummed with faint psychic energy. The air shimmered like heat, though the ground was cold. This is it, Serin said quietly. She handed him a small crystal device, pulsing with faint light. This will stabilize your mind for a few minutes inside. After that, he nodded, gripping it tightly. Understood. Serin stepped close, pressing her forehead to his. I'll stay linked as long as I can. Follow my voice if you get lost. And, if you find her, tell her I never stopped hearing her heartbeat. Elias hesitated, then kissed her forehead. You'll tell her yourself. He stepped forward into the crater. The light consumed him. The psychic realm was a storm of color and sound. A void alive with the echoes of a billion minds, now broken and scattered. He felt himself dissolving, his physical form melting into thought. Around him drifted memories not his own. Faces, battles, the laughter of children, the terror of the Hive's first creations. He called out through the noise, Lyra. First nothing. Then Elias? Her voice was faint, like an echo from beneath an ocean. He pushed forward, past walls of light that pulsed like living hearts, each one a fragment of consciousness still trapped in the dying Hive. He saw her, faint, distant, floating within a cocoon of shattered psychic threads. Her form flickered, sometimes whole, sometimes scattered like glass in water. He reached for her. Lyra, it's me. You have to come back. She turned, her eyes wide with disbelief. Elias? You can't be here. You'll burn. I don't care. I'm not leaving you here. Her expression softened, grief written across her face. You were never supposed to follow me. He took another step, his mind fracturing as the storm tore at him. He could feel Serin's voice faintly, calling from far away. Elias, you're fading. You're going too deep. He ignored it. You said you weren't afraid, he whispered. So don't be now. Lyra's tears shimmered in the void. You don't understand. If I return, the link will kill Serin. My energy is feeding her life. I stay, she lives. The realization hit him like a blade. Then you've been keeping her alive this whole time. Lyra nodded. You can't save us both. Elias's heart pounded. Around them, the psychic realm trembled. His human mind was breaking apart under the weight of the Hive's energy. But he refused to step back. There's always another way, he said through clenched teeth. You taught me that. He reached for her hand, light meeting light. The bond flared between them, brighter than ever before, merging the last of their energies into one impossible spark. The void screamed as if rejecting the fusion, but Elias held on. Come back, he whispered. Both of you. And then everything went white. When the light faded, Serin was kneeling beside his body in the real world, tears streaming down her face. His eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly with twin colors, human brown and alien silver. Elias? She breathed. He smiled weakly, his voice barely a whisper. We're here. Behind his eyes, another presence stirred. Familiar, warm, alive. Lyra's voice, faint but unmistakable, whispering through him. Told you I wasn't afraid. Serin covered her mouth, sobbing in relief. The fire of the suns washed over them as the wind carried the last remnants of the hive into the dawn. The link was no longer a chain. It was a heartbeat, one shared between three souls. Elias drifted in a void that was neither dark nor light, but alive, filled with whispers that pulsed like heartbeats. The Queen's dying echo lingered there, shimmering like a mirage of gold and shadow. Her voice was velvet and venom, curling around his thoughts. You could be eternal, she said. The hive is dying, Elias Trent, but you could wear its crown. Leave the girl. Let the weak flicker fade, and I'll give you everything. The stars, the silence, the power to be remembered when even gods forget. Elias's pulse thundered inside a body that wasn't really there. He felt Lyra's pain radiate across their psychic tether, her essence flickering like a dying flame trapped beneath ice. He saw Serin, her body trembling in the real world, holding his hand against her chest, whispering his name into the storm of collapsing memory. I didn't come here to rule, he said finally. I came here to make sure someone still remembers what it means to feel. The Queen's laughter broke the space around him, shaking the fabric of the mindscape like cracking glass. Feelings are decay, she hissed. They weaken the order. They broke your species. They broke mine. But Elias took a step forward, and every echo of human memory followed. Wars fought, lovers lost, children born under broken skies, promises whispered across dying stars. Then maybe breaking is what makes us real, he said. And maybe that's what you've forgotten. The Queen's form wavered, her regal outline splintering as the minds of her former hive screamed in disarray. She lunged, a torrent of light and rage, but Elias reached out. Not with strength, but with mercy. You're afraid, he whispered. Afraid of being alone. For a heartbeat, her face changed. No longer a tyrant, but a mother terrified of extinction. I built eternity, she said softly. And it's so empty. The light began to crack. Through the fractures, Elias saw Lyra suspended in a prison of psychic glass, her eyes wide with fear. Serin's voice echoed faintly through the bond. You have to bring her back, but if you do, you'll lose yourself. He knew she was right. Every connection they shared pulled him further from the human world. His body, somewhere, was just a fading shell on the palace floor. But what was a body if the soul itself was drowning? Elias closed his eyes and reached for Lyra. Her consciousness shivered against his touch like a frightened child. It hurts, she said. I can't find myself anymore. Then take my voice, Elias murmured. Find yourself in me. He pressed his forehead to hers in that weightless realm, and the bond ignited. Memories flooded through him. Her first breath in the incubation chamber. Her first glimpse of the twin who shared her heartbeat. Her first doubt when she looked at the stars and wondered why she felt different. Serin's laughter rippled in from the edge of the link, her warmth threading through the chaos. For the first time, their minds intertwined completely, not human and alien, but something new. The Queen screamed, her consciousness shattering into fragments that dissolved into the void. But from the wreckage rose a pulse, steady, bright, undeniable. Elias felt it ripple outward, through every drone and node of the hive, through the sleeping minds that had never known their own thoughts. They awoke one by one, gasping in terror and wonder as individuality bloomed like fire in their skulls. "You destroyed everything," the queen cried, her voice fading into dust. "No," Elias answered softly. "We just made it alive." Light burst from Lyra's form as she fully awakened. Her silver eyes met his, and tears, real tears, streamed down her face. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "You've bound yourself to us. You'll never go home." "Home," Elias said, "is wherever someone remembers me." Serin appeared beside them, her presence calm and radiant. "Then let's make a new one." The mindscape dissolved, replaced by the sound of wind and crackling stone. Elias opened his eyes to find himself kneeling on the palace floor. The throne room was in ruins. The queen's body lay still, her crown of neural light dimmed to ash. Around them, freed drones blinked and whispered, voices overlapping in confusion and wonder. Some cried, others laughed. The hive mind was no more, only individuals uncertain and alive. Serin knelt beside him, her hand trembling as it cupped his cheek. "You came back," she breathed. "I wasn't sure you would." Elias smiled faintly, though his vision swam with static. "Neither was I." Lyra stood a few feet away, watching the horizon through a shattered window. "They'll need someone to guide them," she said. "They've never known choice before." Elias rose unsteadily, his legs weak but his resolve stronger than ever. "Then teach them what you taught me," he said. "That love doesn't obey orders." Serin looked at him, her expression torn between pride and grief. "You're fading," she whispered. "The link, it's burning you out." "Maybe," he said with a tired smile, "but I think that's okay." As the twin suns rose over the alien world, light spilled across the broken city. Flowers grew through the cracks of the marble. The air shimmered with something unseen. Freedom, perhaps, or the birth of something far greater. Lyra turned, her voice trembling with awe. "Listen." Through the psychic remnants, faint echoes of laughter, song, and thought rippled outward. A civilization learning to be alive. "They're dreaming," Serin said. "For the first time, they're dreaming." Elias felt warmth spread through his chest as his consciousness flickered again. The bond between them thrummed, unstable but alive, like a heartbeat shared across three souls. Lyra reached for his hand. Serin took the other. Their fingers intertwined, glowing softly where they touched. "We can keep it together," Lyra whispered, "if we stay as one." "You mean merge?" Serin asked quietly. "Not just a bond. A full synthesis." Elias looked at them both, their faces mirrors of strength and fear and love, and nodded. "No more hive," he said. "No more chains. Just us." They closed their eyes. The link deepened, and in that instant 3 separate beings became something transcendent. Human emotion intertwined with alien memory and royal instinct. The hive did not vanish, it evolved. A network not of obedience, but empathy. A collective of individuals bound not by command, but by choice. Across the world, those who once knelt to the queen felt the change and looked to the sky as if sensing a distant heartbeat. In that luminous unity, Elias felt himself dissolve into everything. The stone beneath their feet, the wind above the ruins, the pulse of every living thing. And yet, he was still himself. Lyra's laughter danced through him. Serin's calm steadied his thoughts. Together they breathed, and the world exhaled new life. When dawn broke fully, they stood at the edge of the reborn city, gazing toward the horizon where the sky met the ocean of light. Their voices, 3 and 1, whispered across the awakening world. "Humanity didn't just survive," Elias said softly, his voice now theirs. "We changed what it meant to be alive." And far beyond the clouds, in the silence between stars, something ancient stirred. Perhaps watching, perhaps learning, perhaps afraid. Because somewhere, among the endless galaxies, a new hive had been born. And this time it had a soul.